Hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut channel. I really like this new office. In today's video, this is episode 3, hopefully. I hope I got that part right. We are gonna tear down that monstrosity. So, last episode we pulled this out. I do not recommend it. One more time. Pull the transmission out, leave the transmission in, pull the engine out. Just don't pull it to the subframe. It's not a good idea. So, in today's video, we're gonna pull the transmission out, see what's wrong with it. That's what started this entire thing. And then we're gonna mount the engine on an engine stand, tear it completely down, see how it looks inside. And then we're gonna kind of start assembly in the following episode and everything right after this. So here's the plan for today's video. Oh, hi, you can't see me. You see the problem. This was why I said this is a very bad idea. See, the stable's too high and I can't do much. We're gonna try to hoist the engine gently and get it off of this. But here's what I'm actually gonna do. See, right now, this power steering line is connected to the pump, and then it's connected to the engine here. So we're gonna disconnect that. And I'm gonna remove the exhaust manifolds. It's just super easy right here. Let's just take care of them right now. Then we're gonna hoist the engine up, pull the subframe from underneath it, with the transmission of course. Hoist it up, pull the subframe, rest the transmission only on the table, disengage it from the engine, leave it here, and then we'll take the engine, mount it on an engine stand. And what I just said right now is a lot easier said than done, and likely there's gonna be 10 problems doing that. So wish us luck. See how this goes. Let's talk about the UZ series engine, because it's not only one of the best Toyota and Lexus engines, it is one of the best V8s ever made, period. Now, it's not a high performance engine that is going to be screaming horsepower or whatnot. It's not really meant for that. You can make it that, but that's not really its intended purpose. It's meant to be durable, and durable beyond the limits. This engine started life by starting Lexus. The original Lexus, the LS400 1989, had a 1UZ FE, all aluminum, super high tech, one of the smoothest engines you will ever see. Even Toyota's V12 is not as smooth as the original 1UZ FE. I mean, you go right now to the junkyard, you find the most neglected, most rusted LS400 from 1989 that just looks like this is just a pile of metal. You go put some gas in it, you jump the battery, you start that 1UZ, it will give any new luxury car that costs a small fortune a run for its money. That's how smooth the 1UZ is. It's unbelievable. So the original version of the 1UZ that started it was with 1UZ FE. It's non-VVTi. It had strange distributors. It was actually cutting edge for their time. They're non-adjustable distributors. Pretty cool. And that engine was so over-engineered, it was unbelievable. Still till today, called the best UZ engine. And it is. However, time is playing a kind of working against it. Then in 1998, they updated the 1UZ to a VVTi version, but they updated so much more of it, not just the VVTi. No longer has the distributors, it has coilover plugs. However, it is not as smooth as the 1UZ original, but it's still very smooth. It is so quiet and smooth. It's unbelievable how good that engine is. Then the 3UZ FE. By the way, the 1UZ FE is an all aluminum block, all aluminum cylinder heads. The 3UZ, same thing. It's a 4.3 liter. It is, I think, the best version of the UZ engine, in my opinion, which is what we're working on here in the video. It is so refined, very reliable. It's kind of the best iteration. It is the least problematic one of all of them, with age, of course, not internals. And then there is another version of the UZ. It's like if the original, all aluminum engine was not mega reliable, they decided to make a heavy-duty version of it for the trucks. So in 1998, in the 100 Series Land Cruiser, they released 2UZ FE, which had a cast iron block, just for good measure. So first started with non-VVTi version, then eventually gained VVTi. And here's a few interesting facts about the UZ series engine. First, the 3UZ, the 4.3, it was used in a certain honky HQ430, which is a Chinese luxury car. I've never seen one in my life. I don't think I will, but it's out there. Actually, check them out. They're pretty interesting cars. But it was used in that. And there was a version of the 1UZ FE. It's named something else, some FV something. It was actually approved for aircraft use by the FAA. It's pretty interesting. And then there was another one which was actually put into production. It was a marine version of the UZ engine. It was used in boats. Pretty cool. So let's talk about the reliability of the UZ. Why are they given this mega reliable engine name? Because there's only two ways you can destroy a UZ engine. Don't replace the timing belt and let it break. They always fail in the same way. That's the interesting part. Always the passenger side or the right-hand side bank, first cylinder, it'll either bend the exhaust valves, the intake valves, or both. Every single time when it breaks the timing belt. How severe it is depends what was the RPM. Sometimes it'll break the valve completely off and destroy the whole cylinder. But usually, and this is something a lot are not aware of, the UZ engine is so sensitive with the interference part that if you are changing a timing belt and you let the cam jump and a valve hits a piston, that actually could be enough to bend the valve. You might not notice it, but it'll lose a little bit of power. That's the one thing. That's why they had a service position for the timing belt where it puts the cams in a relaxed position so they are not so jumpy. That's, if you don't get that part right, you can actually bend the valve just by changing the timing belt. So that's something you need to be aware of. We'll tour the engine, talk about some of its quirks, but I want to share with you something about this engine. Unless you just forget to oil change completely, like go change the oil every 45,000 miles and reach 150,000 miles with it, you may have some sludge problems that cause issues. And then if you don't take care of the timing belt, that's another thing. But UZ engines, they have one thing that they do very well. Look, they leak oil. They have there's the other stuff attached to them that could go wrong. But internally, if you go to the junkyard and find a Sequoia Tundra with a rotten frame and the truck is broken in half basically, put some fuel in it, put a battery jumper, it'll start right up and run smoother than any brand new car you can buy in 2025. That's the reality. That's why I see a lot of folks come in the shop, the frame is gone, the truck is just falling apart everywhere with the 2UZ, and their idea is, well, I don't want to junk it, I'm just gonna try to part it out. Well, that's the problem. Who's gonna buy a UZ engine? They're not in high demand because they don't fail. That's usually everything in the car, including the transmission, will fall apart, but the engine. That's how good these engines are, folks. And I wish we're seeing a lot of swaps into other models because this engine is just bulletproof. Now let's talk about some of their common problems real quick. Oil leaks. Not really, I wouldn't say coolant leaks, although it's possible with water pump and whatnot, but oil leaks. Valve cover gaskets, you will do them again and again and again. That's just one of their things. Rear main seal, cam seal, oil pump. That's the reason we're taking this. And then lastly, valve stem seals. That's because of their age. This one we're taking apart is because of that. I wanted to go this far because we wanted to seal everything. I don't like oil leaks in my cars. Because this engine, if you do it right and do everything, you will literally drive it for 15 years and you'll have not a drop of oil come out of it. That's the reality of this engine. And it's such a beautiful engine to work on. Folks, I can say, I've worked on majority of Toyota engines at this point. This one has a simple recipe. Don't reinvent the wheel. I feel like that was their directive when they designed it. They did not overcomplicate anything. Folks will say the starter is in a bad spot. It actually isn't. We'll talk about that in a little bit in the live video. But they kept it simple. The engine is simple. It looks very complicated. But folks, it's a very simple engine. It's so well engineered, but simply engineered, not overcomplicated. You know, there's a lot of really cool engines out there, but they're overcomplicated. This one is basic, simple. Don't reinvent the wheel. Keep it simple. And that's why it's reliable. There isn't much that goes wrong with a UZ engine. It was an absolute pleasure for me to work on a UZ engine. I was so excited about this car to go this far with the UZ, simply because we don't get this pleasure. These things don't have issues. You don't tear down UZ engines all the time. I can say in the shop we tear down all kinds of engines. Not the UZ. Usually timing belt is about it, valve cover gaskets, rear main seal, little oil leaks. That's all. So I'm really having a time of my life. Let's put it this way right now, because it's such a beautiful engine. So simple, so well engineered. Nothing, there's a few things that don't make sense. We'll talk about them. But in the engine itself, internal, everything is solid. Except the cam seal. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But we're about to go back to the live video. Let's do a full tour of this engine and just... what a beautiful engine. It's one of the top engines in my opinion. So, we have the engine all torn apart. I gotta say one thing. You will count how many, on one hand, how many UZ engines I've gotten down to this stage. They just don't have issues, flat out. Let's take a look at a few things here. Because this engine has been sitting for a very long time and started for short periods of time and shut off. So we had a lot of moisture. I don't know if you noticed it in the video. There's a lot of moisture. And folks, this is not a blown head gasket. This is just moisture buildup. And let me show you how that moisture looks like. If you look at the cylinder head, look how clean it is. It just looks beautiful. Very clean, very nice. Then we look at this one. See that? See all that stuff? See how half of it is very, very darkened and the other half is clean? And then if you look at the camshaft, and one of them was like severe. Let me see if I can find it. One that was... it is this one. Look at that. This is rust, folks, forming on this camshaft. And look how half of it's clean. Half of it is like, it's got this rust on it, basically. We can clean this up a little bit. That'll clean right up, not an issue. Because this is all fresh. Most of it, I literally wiped it down. Like you see some of it here. See that? That's actually rust. You can wipe it off immediately. So moisture builds up in these engines when they sit. That's the problem. You have changes in temperature and this engine is relatively sealed. You'll build up moisture and it'll collect on one side, which has a tiny little leak. See, this side is gonna be the driver's side, which is this one. If we find the valve cover for the driver's side, which is this one, look at the valve cover. Look at that. Look how clean it is here. How disgusting it is here. But what do we have here? The PCV valve is here. That's why. You do have a breather on the other side, but this is why this side will build more moisture always than the other side. That's pretty typical. We see this a lot. This block, this engine is pretty healthy, runs perfectly fine. We didn't tear it down for any short block work here. Some will see this. We'll assume this engine burns oil. That's actually not washed, because if you look at the edge has carbon here. It doesn't. That's just possibly fuel from running it for a very short time and cleaning it. So this is not ring wash, because you see the edge has carbon and here it doesn't. That's not ring wash, folks. Ring wash will be perfectly clean in the edge. Same thing here. All of these, this is not ring wash, folks. This is just running it for a short period of time and shutting it off, and you'll have fuel coming in and lingering. So this head gasket material, let me pull this head gasket, show you. Toyota uses this. I mean, if you are into how head gaskets are made, you may know, lightness, because I'm not into this stuff. This black coating, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because this black coating usually is what causes head gaskets to leak externally when it starts peeling up. And you notice when we pulled this one out, I mean, basically half of it stayed here. I'm going to have to spend a significant time to clean all this stuff. This is a multi-layer steel gasket. It's just beautiful. 3 layers. Of course, coming apart. It's old. It's been in service for a long time. But this is how a multi-layer steel gasket looks like. This is how the UZ is. It is basically built like a tank. A tank that is, I'll tell you one thing. We may have slightly, just a little bit, gone overboard with this. We didn't need to pull it this far apart. Could have just pulled it, not pull the heads. I could have done the valve guide seals without pulling the heads off, but I feel guilty about this car. So we're going to give her the royal treatment. You notice, that's why I tell you that the UZ series engine is the best V8 Toyota ever made, and best V8 period. Unlike the 3UR, which, look here, look in this valley. Why can't the 3UR be like this, Toyota? There's no valley plate, there's no leaks, there's nothing. Some folks will complain, well, starters here, this is a terrible idea. Well, let me tell you one thing. If you own a 3UR or a 1UR engine, a UR series V8, I will do 100 of these starters by pulling the intake manifold, then do one that sits underneath the exhaust manifold. That's all I'll tell you. See, folks will complain and complain about this stuff, but they haven't actually replaced one because they're not terrible. Especially this one. There's no secondary air injection. There is nothing in your way. The toughest part about this starter is not the intake manifold. That's super simple, folks. These two bolts. You got the transmission right here. You got these two bolts, a little bit tight to get to them, but it's not impossible. It's not bad at all. This engine is the construction of it's super interesting. See, what was leaking in this engine is the oil pump. Look at it. You got oil right here. That's where it was leaking from. This is the oil pump right here. You can't reseal this until you take the lower oil pan. The upper oil pan, sorry. And in the car, you can't remove the upper oil pan without doing something very dangerous, which is hanging the engine from the transmission to pull the subframe down and pull that out. It becomes very difficult to do it. It's doable, but I think it's easier. Now we have a new head gasket. Everything is good. We don't have any issues. I'm going to turn this engine around. Let's take a look at the bottom end. Probably going to make a mess on the floor again. There we go. See, look at that oil. Look at that oil that fell on the ground. See how milky it is? Folks, that is not a blown head gasket. That is moisture. This is why, I'll tell you this. You know, when I tell you change the oil every 6 months, regardless, that's why. See, this car has not had an oil change for, at least in my ownership, for a year, and I haven't driven it, nothing. Nothing. It's been just flat sitting, and now I have to turn it the other way because this bolt hits the engine stand. I haven't driven this car, nothing in the past year. And that's how the oil looks like. But guess what? When it went in, it didn't look like that. So there is that. Here's the bottom of it. I debated, should we pull mains and do this and that? But honestly, folks, I said it once a long time ago, and I'm going to say it again. We're working on a Toyota here. So those the Lexus. Toyota here. And not only working on Toyota, we're working on a UZ V8. You don't worry about caps and mains and rod bearings and A, B, C, D, E, F, G with a UZ. That's the God honest truth. When you go buy a reman engine, they did nothing here. They cleaned this up, measured everything, and everything was perfectly fine. Put it back together, ship it back to you. That's what they do. That's how you reman a UZ. Because this engine, which is heavily neglected now thanks to me, turn it the wrong way again. It has 160,000 miles. Well, shall we look at the cylinder walls? This is like an embarrassment for a lot of engines at this mileage. You get the crank pulley. Look at this one. It does have debris in it. We haven't cleaned it, literally just pulled it apart. Look at the walls. That looks perfect. Look at the other side. That looks perfect. Same thing here. Oh, look at that. 160,000 miles. Nothing. And if we turn it, other than the debris that it has nothing. It just looks perfect. And same thing with this one. And same thing on the other side. This is the beauty of a UZ engine, folks. They just run flat out. They don't have issues. So this is the block, though. We're not going to do much with it. I'm going to pull the oil pump, clean it up, reseal it. It has sealer, just regular RTV. Here's the water pump. You do a timing belt. This is the water pump they do replace. I'm going to replace that, put all new timing belt components and whatnot. But rear main seal, we're also going to replace it. This is where we have a mystery, and I'll tell you about it before we move on to the rest of the engine stuff. This rear main seal, it has a little bit of wetness at the bottom, but not enough to indicate a leak. But let's go talk about what actually started this whole thing, transmission. Here is the problem with this, and this is where we ran into some serious problems. Let me pull it out so we can be a little bit more space. There we go. So here's the deal with this transmission. This started leaking unbelievably. You start the car, just drip, 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 drip on the ground. Customer was driving on the highway when this happened. Here's what I'm discovering now. And we're gonna do one of these deals, and we're gonna hope for the best. I have reason to believe something they did, either they drove it in like not in top gear, held a gear, it was rubbing too high, and it overheated the torque converter, or the torque converter, somehow they got it not to lock, and it got way too hot, because I already pulled this torque converter out, so I'm going to pull it right now so you can see it. It was stuck. It would not budge at all. Let me pull it out and show you what we actually found. See, it's still not smooth. The first problem. Yeah, I hope you can see it. That's not good. That's not good at all. The second problem. Let me wipe this down. Second problem. Look at that shaft. Look how blue it is, the tip of it. I hope you can see it on camera. It's just like glowing. Look at the inside. Look at that. Let me clean it up. That's what I call a fire ring. Like if you look at it from the side, it's completely blue. Right there. I'll give it a little light. Right there. That is completely blue. So now we arrive at the $1 million question. Do we put a torque converter in this and hope for the best? And put a new seal, of course, because this seal is cooked. I mean, this thing was glowing red. This torque converter was a glowing red. The problem is, if you shopped for prices on Lexus transmissions, this torque converter costs more than a used transmission with 50,000 miles. That's the problem. And then, I don't know what caused this. Why did this torque converter overheat like this? What else did it do? So I'm really at a dilemma, and honestly, when I pulled this out and torque converter did not want to come out, I knew something was catastrophically wrong, because then I look at this surface, I mean, I don't feel it with my, actually I do, in this is where the seal rides. I mean, is this deform? It's something we're going to spend some more time with, but this is where the problem. I mean, the engine stuff is just, we're resealing the engine, make sure nothing leaks, but this is a problem. And if we got this much heat here, I'm not only going to replace the seal, there's O-rings around this pump. This is actually the transmission pump. I'm going to want to pull that out as well and change it, because if this thing overheated, if we ended up getting a torque converter and just taking a risk and seeing what happens, that's what I'll do. But as far as this torque converter goes, I mean, when I saw this, don't think this is a good idea. Don't think this torque converter should not go back into this transmission, I don't think. Well, how about this? Let's do it the old school way. You tell me what you want to see. Should we get a torque converter? Not going to buy a new one. I'll be flat honest with you. First, I don't think they even make them anymore, or they're very scarce. Second, it literally costs more than a used transmission. That doesn't even make sense. But if I find a used torque converter, should we take a chance, get a used torque converter, put a seal the oil pump, put it all back together and see what happens? I mean, worst case scenario, it doesn't work. Well, now I got an extra torque converter for the future, and we just go get a used transmission. Or do we just cut our losses and make this into a beautiful ornament and just get a used transmission too and cut through the chase? You know what? In a normal world, if this I was just fixing my car and get it going, I would not risk it. I'll just get a transmission. But this is YouTube. I mean, we put this transmission back together and it kind of goes bye-bye after a week. Well, I guess we just pull it back again and replace. I think I'm leaning towards that. You guys let me know what you think. But before we wrap up this video, here's the rest of this engine. I mean, it's not a complicated engine. You notice this is a V8. This is everything internal, except the valve covers that are there. But I want to show you something. The UZ series VVTi is a nightmare when it comes to the cam seals. And this is why. See, here's the cam seal. But how do you get it out? This entire assembly has to come out for you to pull the seal out. That's why, and this is something extremely difficult to explain on the phone when folks are calling for an estimate. Why is it so expensive to replace a cam seal on a 2UZ VVTi? It's because I got to pull the cams out. Got to do the timing belt, of course. Got to pull the cams out, which means I have to pull the valve cover, which now you added a lot more labor to do this, because you have to take this cam out, disassemble this part, separate the cam from the VVTi gear to pull the seal out, install the new one, and then off we go. And then this cap, this is another common leak with these. This cap, I hope not to drop the bolt, this cap has sealer here, which also loves to leak. You see the remnants of it? See the sealer right there? This loves to leak. Here's a half moon. You can't do this little half moon plug without pulling this out. And that's another common spot to leak. This is the only part, perhaps, about the UZ VVTi that, yeah, I could have done this better. Because the 2JZ, you can pull the nose of the VVTi gear and pull the seal right out. Why can't we do that one as well? This is the only part. I love the starter. Some folks will say this is the worst thing about this engine. This is the best thing about this engine. That is not a good idea. Flat out. There's no other way to say it. But here's how Toyota used to do things, and they don't do that for a long time. It's just not just, don't go hard on the V6 twin turbo. They haven't done this in a long time. Look at this. They give you the hooks already on the engine. They don't have you buy them later. So any Toyota engine, if you want to buy the official hooks that hook in an exact spot, they fit perfectly for it's designed for that specific engine, you can actually go buy them. They make them. But they used to include them with the engine. Now they don't. You have to go buy them, or the dealership has to buy them, or whoever wants to do it but needs to buy them. That's how they do things today. And then the wiring harness. Folks, this wiring harness is, for lack of a better word, it's just completely falling apart. I mean, I'm concerned, especially the wire that runs behind the exhaust manifold, goes to the AF sensors. The problem is, I actually considered replacing this harness because this will future-proof this car. Never going to have issues with it because of a harness. Discontinued harness, of course. If there was a harness that never goes south, they would never discontinue it, it feels like. That's not the case. Let's look at the rest of the parts here before we wrap up this video, because in the next one, we're actually going to start assembling here. Intake manifold. It's actually a two-piece intake manifold. You got the bottom piece, top piece. And take all that, clean it up. And you do have a vacuum reservoir. This thing's so heavy. There's a vacuum reservoir right here. That's to store some vacuum. We did the Century video. You guys saw the two on the sides, which are a pain. This one sits right here. It's just simpler. Here's the interesting part. The intake manifold gasket of this car, of this V8, is exactly the same shape and style as the V12. Just the V12 has two more. How about that? That's pretty cool. The rest of the stuff here is a starter, which everyone really, really dislikes. Folks, it's not a bad starter. And the bolts, they're actually unique and special. They're long. These are the bolts for the starter. There will always be the case with the UZ. It's a very simple engine. I mean, this is everything. That's it. That's a whole engine. Folks, you tear a 4-cylinder down from a modern, like an A25, it'll be 3 times more parts than it's half the engine. That's how modern engines have gotten. But this is basic, simple, very well built. I mean, it's impeccable how well built it is. We are going to replace this starter. We're going to clean everything up. Throw half this engine in the Vixen. I'm not going to put the block there. See, we don't want to completely tear it down. But we'll clean it up as best as possible. Get it nice and tidy. But we'll do all that in the next episode, where we'll start prepping the short block. We'll clean it up, take the oil pump, we'll take a look inside of it as well. Start slowly assembling this engine, because I need to figure out what we're going to do with this transmission. Because if you are the owner of this car, which I can easily call you tomorrow, I just don't want to bother you. Maybe if you're interested in this, this was your car, juggle that memory of yours, because something catastrophic happened here. This is not a normal failure. This is not a seal that just failed. This is a torque converter that just overheated for a reason, and it was a perfectly healthy transmission, and I'm kind of at a crossroad here. We'll figure it out. We'll see what happens, but I'm leaning towards just putting a used torque converter to see what happens. Worst case scenario, gotta take a bike apart again. Well, we just do that. Folks, until the next video, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.